Very pleased to have you here to talk about this evening's topic, which is kind of a unique project that's happening here on campus. Our distinguished visiting artist, Martin Keil, is here to talk about his interdisciplinary collaborative project he's been working on alongside of the College of Engineering and with the art department here. So with that, I'm going to kind of give the mic over to Norbert who can kind of explain this evening's interactive discussion.
I'm Norbert Manner. I think most of you know me. I'm wearing three hats today. So first of all, I've been part of this group that's trying to promote teaching of sustainability on campus, and Marsha has sort of spearheaded that, and we've been doing that for the last 3 years or so. Secondly, I'm also the sponsor of the Distinguished Visiting Artist today, Martin Keil. And thirdly, I'm also the instructor of COM 530, which is our graduate class in organizational communication with focus on sustainable organizations this semester. So it's a perfect connection there. Today Martin Keil, our visiting artist, will talk a little bit about this project, about the work that we've been doing on campus and we're planning to do for the rest of the semester, building up to Earth Day, but also beyond. Then Ron will say a few words about, because this is a truly multidisciplinary initiative, so it's communication, art, engineering, the IEP program is represented as well, and so we have quite a few different angles that we'll try to integrate. So Ron will be here talking about art, and we have some representation of engineering. And then after that, unfortunately, Jim Prochaska is not able to join us today. He had some health issues, and he's a health promotion guy, you know. But Colleen Redding will speak instead, and she's actually perfectly suited for this because not only has she worked with Jim and his model and the Cancer Prevention Center for about 20 years, but she's also been part of this sustainability group, and we also have done quite a bit of research on sustainable transportation, so it seems like a perfect match there. Okay, so without further ado, I will hand it off to Martin, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, I hope everyone is enjoying the dessert. It looks very delicious. Good evening. I'm very pleased and I feel very honored to be here at URI this academic year as a distinguished visiting artist. A very special thanks to Marsha for organizing everything, and to my host Norbert Munder for the introduction. My name is Martin Keil. I'm from Berlin, Germany. I'm working in an artist project group with the name Reinigungsgesellschaft. Don't worry, I don't want to give you a German lesson today, but I will explain what a Reinigungsgesellschaft means. Before I explain the artist practice of Reinigungsgesellschaft, it's seemingly a strange and, in fact, a very long German word. I would like to welcome you all. Reinigungsgesellschaft consists of the two German terms, Reinigung and Gesellschaft, whose German implications range from cleaning service to purification society. As an artist, I work together with my partner Henrik Meyer as the co-founder of the artist project group Reinigungsgesellschaft at the intersection between art, science, and social change. In many participative pilot projects and in more than 20 countries, we have worked on site-specific solutions to change living conditions and perspectives for a sustainable future. You would probably ask yourselves what the rep is doing on the washing machine. Has someone an idea? Okay, if not, I will give you a short explanation. The good thing is that the rabbit is not in the washing machine and it's alive. The washing machine is a dialectical symbol of our materialistic and industrialized world, of a high usage of natural resources and energy. This leads to the question if the Western economic model based on free market and economic growth and their executive political systems can solve challenges like the exploitation of natural resources and global warming. Economic growth and prosperity have to reinterpreted, and new growth indicators are necessary for a future-proof development. The sociologist Jeremy Rifkin, for example, says the following, quote, "We need a new economic narrative that can take us into a more equitable and sustainable future." One of the most challenging issues in society is the crisis of the ideology of growth. What awareness can we contribute to a globalized world with increasing ecological, economic, and social changes? I use the term art as an imaginative space, a space to merge different disciplines in finding answers to the ecological, economic, and social crisis we are facing today. This holistic and interdisciplinary examination compares and combines environmental, cultural, social, and economic theories and approaches. A critical analysis of thematic complexes will point differences and common grounds. The projects of Reinigungsgesellschaft makes emancipatory processes aware to all people they include and therefore create the preconditions for social renewal. Reinigungsgesellschaft demonstrates this objective through its name and defines cleaning as a process of renewal. Art praxis becomes a social process and affects diverse areas of life. So we define contemporary art as catalyzer for social and political processes. My starting point working on campus was to analyze the potential of URI. With its rich history and origin as a former agricultural school, the University of Rhode Island offers an ideal institution for facing challenges of the 21st century. For example, interconnections between the colleges of art and science, engineering and environment and life sciences can produce new solutions of challenges to face global warming and environmental protection.
So I'm Ron Honorado. I'm the chair of the Art and Art History Department. There is no art department here. It's an Art and Art History Department. And we teach two very different disciplines in the humanities and in the creative arts, studio art. And we're thrilled to have Martin here this year. And we're very lucky that he's been here for an extended period of time. This is the second year of the Distinguished Visiting Artist Program, as many of you know. But last year it was a 2-week, it's conceived as a 2-week residency, but given Martin's particular situation, he was able to be here in the fall semester as well as now, so it's really made a big difference. I want to recall that about 10 more years ago, when we had a university colloquium on sustainability, I was brought in to discuss how the art department might participate and how we discussed that within the arts. And I told the organizers that we didn't discuss that within the arts, because we didn't. It wasn't part of the dialogue in art. This is going back a few years, but I don't remember the exact year of the colloquium, but maybe some of you remember it. It was a great colloquium, but it really wasn't part of the dialogue in the arts at that point. And I think Martin's doing a terrific job and presented us with a model that's very interesting, but I'm not going to talk so much about the model of sustainability. I'd rather talk to some degree about the model of what Martin has called a sort of interdisciplinary, hands-on approach to learning. That's what intrigues most of us in the arts. We're an experiential department, our students make things for the most part. The studio art students, who we're mostly talking about here, are very engaged in sort of physical activities in their shops and studios. Ben, I think, was probably one of the first professors outside of engineering that had a 3D printer on campus. Maybe pharmacy did too, to do some molecular models. But we're looking for solutions. I think artists do that a lot. And a lot of people don't realize what we do. Part of that is that we're very peripheralized on campus. Literally, we're peripheralized in terms of where we are. We're peripheralized in terms of we're brutalized, if you will, by our brutalist building. Opaque, you can't see into it. When you go into it, you can't see into the studios. It's really a sort of ridiculous situation in some ways. And also the tradition of the visual arts is that artists in the past, not all artists and not all past, but a long-standing tradition in the last century or two has been that artists have worked, visual artists have worked alone in their studios, and that's still a sort of prime model. We're not like the other arts that are in our building, in fact, and that are also part of the group that brings the distinguished visiting artists onto campus, music and theater, who tend to be much more collaborative out of necessity and out of sort of one of their primary concerns is collaboration. We do have artists who are interested in that, but we don't do it as well. It's not a reflexive way that we think in the visual arts. And the distinguished visiting artist, and particularly Martin this year, has as he suggested in his presentation, as Norbert has suggested in terms of mentioning the various departments that are involved, has done that for us. And we need that. We need to make connections. And Martin has enabled us to sort of make some direct connections internally in terms of other departments, in terms of non-majors, non-art majors who might be exposed to what we're doing. I don't think you showed that, but you also brought some engineering students, over to the art studios as well. So it works in both directions here. I'm not suggesting it's a one-way situation. And that opening up extends to things like opening us up to the world of issues, and whether they're campus-wide issues or statewide issues or national or global issues. The arts want to do that now, but we're in a sort of strange situation in terms of being able to do that. So the Distinguished Visiting Artist Series, and again, I call attention to the fact that Martin is doing particularly well this year, really allows us to sort of have that kind of dialogue. It's what he's trying to do here tonight. He's bringing us together and just sitting and talking, meeting somebody else from another department, or seeing old friends from other departments. So this is really important. I think, the fact that we've got communication studies, and we've got engineers, and we've got people from DOT, and a whole range of other people here means a great deal in a campus that is very siloed. And one of the solutions we see for this, as Trish knows, is the potential for maybe a new building at some point, and a 2016 bond issue. So if we get on that, we might solve some problems of both sustainability and siloing in terms of some of what I'm talking about here. But what Martin's providing us with is a model that we should be able to use. I mean, I've been on campus almost 40 years, and we don't do this nearly enough. So I think this provides, at least in the arts, we don't do it. And you're providing us with a model for that, so I thank you for it. And to me, that's the most exciting thing. The sustainability thing is terrific, but that's a case study, if you will, an important one. But I'd like to see us extend that to, it could be almost anything. Last year, the Distinguished Visiting Artist, Francis Whitehead, dealt a little bit with sea level rise, and that too is an important issue, obviously. So these are the kinds of things that we want to get to. And we're hoping that it extends in the future beyond the visual arts. We've been lucky to have the first two Distinguished Visiting Artists being in the visual arts, but music and theater and film do play a role in this, and we hope to get some candidates in the future for that as well. So far, it's been very successful, and we thank the provost for supporting it. Thanks.
Thank you.
The whole initiative is about change, and I think Mark pointed that out, and others pointed that out. And Colleen is an expert in change. That's her expertise, working with the CBSE behavior change towards initially primarily towards health, but increasingly, health and sustainability is hard to separate. So we're kind of putting her on the spot because she didn't find out until this afternoon that she was going to be speaking today. But whatever she has to say will be great. So.
Well, I guess I was hoping this could be more of a conversation. Many of you already know about the trans-theoretical model or stages of change model. It's often called that on campus. It was a model of behavior change developed right here by Dr. Prochaska. And some of us have been working on this model applied to various areas, mostly health behavior change for the past 20 to 30 years, really. So there's a lot of empirical support for the model. Basically, in a nutshell, it says that people don't change all at once, they change in stages. And that you can find out what are the most important variables or constructs to assess and intervene on to help them progress to the next stage. So the first stage is pre-contemplation. The next stage is where they're not even thinking, maybe even unaware of the problem. We can all think of climate change deniers or people who are not interested in sustainability for whatever reasons. And it would include all of them. Then there's the people who are thinking about it, the contemplators. And of course, you would need to approach or engage with people at different stages differently. And this comes right out of the model. And we have found this repeatedly. So then there's another stage, preparation, which is the next stage, where people are actively involved in changing, trying on new ways of thinking about change to see what fits and what makes sense for them. Action, they've decided on what they're going to do and they're taking steps to make it happen. And then the final stage is maintenance, where they're trying to maintain that change over time. So clearly, although this applies well in the health behavior change area, it also applies to sustainability-related behaviors. And Norbert and I have done a little bit of work, looking at sustainable transportation and applying the model in that area. Jeff Green has also done some work looking at green eating, for example, or more sustainable eating patterns, and looking at people's attitudes and behaviors around that. I just reviewed an article today looking at sustainable purchasing practices within organizations using this model. Another article, which I haven't had a chance to read yet, looking at global leadership development and sort of an organizational framework. So you can think about, as you can see, the model can apply to a whole range of changes. So I think one of the interesting things to think about is, what are the most important ways that we could use this model to better engage, the full audience? Like here at the university, you want students, you want faculty, you want staff at all stages, and you want to engage all of them in this process. So how can we think about things differently? Using the model and perhaps going beyond the model, because it only goes so far. All models do. So that's it in a nutshell. Anybody want to ask or want me to elaborate on any of that?
Are there areas where it doesn't? I'm just curious.
That's an
Is
interest.
it change? Or is it change within certain arenas? Is it? You said it works
it was originally conceptualized as intentional behavior change, so that's pretty broad scope. And Jim and others early on developed the model by examining theories of psychotherapy, which of course describe how people change within a therapy context, but it can also apply to self-change and has been applied repeatedly to self-change. So it's both a model for how to help others change and how to help yourself change if you want.
But can it apply to groups versus individuals?
It can and has been applied to groups, and organizations. In fact, Jim's wife, Jan, has done some work in the area of organizational behavior change. So it's interesting to think about that.
So how can we get URI to change?
Well, that's
well, what do we want them to do, I guess, is one of the questions. Go ahead,
Do you think it's easier to get people to change their practices that affect the health of the environment, or change practices that affect the health of their own bodies?
That's a good question. I'm not sure we know the answer. I think it has to do with how invested they are. You know, what are the benefits and costs for them? You know,
Is it always
what's
about costs and benefits?
Costs and benefits turn out to be very important, at least early in the change process when you're trying to engage somebody. But it's not all about that. So once somebody's thinking about changing and engaged in you know, figuring out what makes sense for them, then it can also be about how confident they feel that they can engage in this behavior change. For example, say commuting, say, just as a sustainable transportation or something like that. You know, does it make sense for them? Are there reasonable infrastructure options that support what they want to do?
Right.
Here, often, the answer is no, right? There's not that much infrastructure.
From my work with the model, one of the things, I think initially, it's defining the behavior that you want to change. So initially it was basically like one thing, you quit smoking, let's say, stop smoking. It's one behavior. But now I think the trend is going towards what they call multiple behaviors. So if you think about sustainable behavior, it does include transportation, recycling, energy use, water use, etc. And so the question is it better to just focus on one and get hopefully the others will follow along, or do you try to get everything moving along at one pace? So I mean these are questions, and I don't have the answers.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
It sounds like it was designed for dyads since it stemmed initially from psychotherapy. And I'm just wondering what it's like to use it in a classroom where you could have an audience composed of people at many different stages. One, how do you diagnose the targets in an audience of that sort? And then two, how do you actually tailor an intervention when you have so many people at different stages within the audience?
Right. It's a good question. I mean, I've seen, the first thing is that just talking about readiness allows you to sort of respect all of the people in the room and where they're at. You know what I mean? Like, often you might have a disagreement between somebody who's really ready to change something or somebody who believes strongly that everybody should do X, for example, and somebody else who's against that or not ready. And simply making that observation can allow for both perspectives to coexist, you know, respectfully. So that's one approach to working in a group with the model. Another approach would be to select people on the basis of their readiness and construct groups of those who are ready, those who are less ready, those who aren't even thinking about it, you know, in order to move along.
So use an instrument to
well,
determine readiness, or you just have
Well, there's a whole lot you could say about. We develop all kinds of measures to reflect the main constructs. So stage is one I've talked about a lot, but pros and cons, or benefits and barriers, is another important construct. Confidence or self-efficacy is another important construct, and then there's the processes of change, and I won't go into all of them, but essentially, depending on the stage of change of the individual, different strategies are effective for helping them to progress to the next stage. And you know that, right? We all